Hello everybody and welcome to Ep.9, and it is a cold and snowy morning this morning. It's been snowing quite hard for about an hour. It's stopped now though, and it is melting quite quickly, so that's something, but with wind chill it feels a lot colder. So today I'd like to have a catch up on the work done so far and do my top tools review, which is something I've been meaning to do for a while. So let's not mess about out in the snow for too long. Let's get the fire on and get into the warm. Well, I think it's time we had a recap on the work, so let's go inside and have a quick look at where we've got to so far. So, if I go inside the boat, and we'll start off at the back, at the blunt end. What I've done, I don't know if you can see those lines that go there, and then if I move over here, I'll just move this container out of the way, and that line there and there, I lifted the floor up and cut those sections out. And that was full of ballast, and I removed the ballast, which is there at the back of the boat. I won't be using that anymore, and that means that I can inspect what was the old wet bilges for any sort of water. There's going to be cupboards there, so I'll be able to just open a door, lift those out, have a look inside, take out any water that might collect, inspect them, you know, anything like that. If we have any accidents or any leaky taps or anything like that, it will collect just there, so I'll be able to pump it all out. It's just for maintenance purposes, but hopefully we'll never need to use it, but it's a nice thing to have. Right, we covered earlier putting this plywood back in. We're not finished there. We'll lift them out and treat them and fix them in properly, but that's much further down the road once I start moving the electrics in. We've got insulation in all the way down the boat, including the roof, all the way to the sharp end. There's a gap there missing. I took that out because I'm still running wiring at the moment. So move down across the top here. You can see just here I put some 25mm trunking in. I don't know if the camera can pick that up very well, and that goes all the way down to the front of the boat, and we have run 4 sets of wiring through that. These are 12 volt, and if you look, they are all colour coded, yellow and blue and red and black. So no matter where I break into that circuit at any point, I'll be able to tell what wire does what. So it's colour coded, and it's the same at the other side. And these are going to be the wires for the horn, the tunnel light, the well deck light, and 1 spare. Because you always forget something, don't you? So I'll put 1 spare in just in case. Hopefully, you know, it'll never get used, but you never know, I might find a use for it. So I'll put 1 spare in to be on the safe side. All the battening down the side has been done. That one's been taped in with Celotex tape. That's all the way down the side, ready to have the side cladding put on. If I move down to the gunnels, I've run a piece of wood all the way along the gunnels, all the way to the front of the boat there, and part way along here. Need to finish that off, get some more wood. That is going to run across the bottom edge. On this side, it's going to run the 240 volt supply off the inverter, and the same on this side. So I'm going to have 2 circuits, one for the left hand side, one for the right hand side, or port and starboard, whichever way you want to look at it. So there'll be 12 volt there, but the regulations say, sorry, 240 volt there, and the regulations say that you can't have 240 volt and 12 volt within 4 inches of each other, whatever that is in new money. So this gap here, all the way to the top, is more than 4 inches or more than that. So we're going to run 240 down here, and then where that wood stops, there's going to be another piece in there. We're going to run some more 12 volt there, and that is going to power the water pump and the gulper pump for the bathroom, and that will go all the way down there. We haven't done that yet, but another job to do. You've seen the roof battening. We've started that, and we've also started hanging wires out of the roof, because we need to run the wiring before we can put the roof in. So that is 12 volt wiring. This is 2 core cable, 2.5mm. Oh, I need to cover that, don't I? That's 2.5mm cable, which is massively over the top for 12 volt LED lights. But if ever there's a mix up, or you need something, or you want to change something, the wiring will cope with it. And that runs all the way down the side and comes out here where it will be connected up. And this will all go to a control box, which I'm about to build here in the near future. This wiring here for the front of the boat, if I just go back and cover that again, that's 2.5mm as well. It doesn't actually need to be 2.5, I'm just being on the safe side. So I can pretty much plug anything in to that end and it should be okay. You do have to take into account these are long runs of wire and it is voltage drop. Now, people say whenever you put your wire in, they can't understand why you have to double up the length. The length is your power supply out and your earth. You have to count both. So it's one out, one in if you like. So that's where the double length of wire comes from. It's the combination of those two rather than just one big long wire on its own. But I've colour coded mine. Everything 12 volt will be black for negative and red for positive. And that should stop any confusion in the near future. So the other thing we've done, obviously we bought lots of material and stuff like that, but if I can walk down to the middle of the boat and turn around, is we are getting to the point now where I need to be here where my workbench is. So everything here except for the stove will need to move down to the other end of the boat. Okay, so that's, I don't know how I'm going to fit it all in, but we're going to try. So that's one of the next jobs to do as well, is move everything from here to the front of the boat. So I've got an area to fit stuff out with. So yeah, things are moving on, and it doesn't seem that long ago that I was saying, you know, I need to get my van on the road and get some battering and whatever, but once you buy some materials and start working away, progress is reasonably quick, but there's lots and lots of hold-ups for things like clips and bits of wire and stuff like that. So that's where we are with the work so far. If I've missed anything, we'll cover that again later on. So yeah, we'll just press on and just do more of the same. At number 5, we've got saws, and you will need a selection of saws. So I'll show you through my collection. I've got quite a few. So I'll start off with these saws here. I've got a couple. These are old rough saws, and I use these for roughing out plywood, cutting up the firewood, use it for everything that's not important. So I can save my good saws for the more intricate and delicate work. I have a finer, smaller saw with a much finer blade on it. There's less teeth on this one, and I use this for the tongue and groove and the more delicate work, so it doesn't split or fracture the wood in any way. It gives a nice finish. It's quite a good saw. But this one is Old Faithful. I've had this many years. I had it before I had the boat. It's a Sandvik saw. I bought it from a DIY shop. It didn't cost much. It was ever so cheap, but it is brilliant, and it is still sharp, you know. And I've used it for a lot of wood, and I've used it all through this boat restoration so far, and it cuts well, and it gives a good finish, and it will follow a line nicely, and I'll get on well with it. So that's my Old Faithful saw. Now we'll move on to the automated side of sawing, which is hole saws. Now I bought a set of hole saws. These have a drill in the centre, and then they cut to a diameter. So you drill through like a pilot hole, if you like, and that supports the saw, holds it central, and then it rotates and cuts a hole. And you will need these. I bought a set of these when I first got the boat, thinking that I would need quite a few of them. I haven't used all of them so far, but every size I have needed is in that set, so it's worth checking out roughly what sort of sizes you'll be doing. I haven't needed to buy any more so far, so invest in a decent set of hole saws, and do check out that the blades are capable of cutting not only wood but steel as well, because you will find that useful. So I put that away. We'll move over to metalwork, hacksaws. I've got 2 hacksaws. Here they are. This one has a finer blade in it, and I use that for cutting steel work with, and this one's got a slightly coarser blade in it, and I use that for cutting softer materials like aluminium, any brass work, stuff like that. This one, for some reason, doesn't cut as well as this one. I can follow a line much better with this one. I don't know why. So I have 2 of these, and instead of changing blades, I've just got 2 saws. Now we move over to one of the more important saws, and that is your power saws. This is a jigsaw, and so far I've not needed to use a circular saw or any other sort of power saw other than just the jigsaw. And I bought this from a DIY shop. It was £20. I bought it specifically because I got this boat, and it came with a selection of blades as well. So I've got a woodwork blade in it at the moment. It gave me a couple of spare ones of those, and the set also gave me a few finer blades for cutting steel work with, but I haven't needed to use it for steel yet. I didn't invest in a particularly expensive, high quality jigsaw, because once I've finished doing this boat, I have very little use for a jigsaw. So as long as it lasts for the duration of the boat restoration, I'll be happy. But so far, it's been absolutely brilliant and saved me a lot of work. So these are quite important. So a selection of saws and getting the right saws for the job is quite important to a boat restoration. At number 4, we've got the cordless drill. Very, very important. There's a lot of snobbery with cordless drills. Who has the best one? Which is the best value for money? Some are very, very expensive and some are really cheap. Now, it stands to reason that the more expensive your drill is, the longer it will last and the batteries will last better, and it just will be a better quality drill. But there is nothing wrong with cheap drills. I am using the cheapest drill on the market. This came from a well-known budget outlet called Aldi, for those in America and Canada watching. I don't know if you have that. And this was something like £9.99, and it has been brilliant. It has 2 speeds and it has a small hammer action on it as well. And I had this drill before I started the boat, so I just brought it onto the boat and started using it. And it's been brilliant so far. It has done a lot of work. I'd had it a few years before I started work on the boat, and it's still going strong. Now, I will say, the other day the screw shook out from the gearbox where it connects to the motor, and I had to strip the drill, screw them back in and put it back on, which probably wouldn't have happened with a more expensive drill. But I put them back on and it's up and running again, and we're still going. So while I've got this drill, I'm going to keep using it and see how it goes, and then if it packs up, I've only lost £9.99, and then I'll go out, probably get another one just as cheap. Now, the advantages of a cheap drill are that whilst you're working on your boat, if you drop it on the floor and break it or tread on it, you've only lost £9.99. Or if you're working outside the boat and you let go of it and it falls into the canal, you've only lost £9.99. So you won't be too bothered if you do that. But if I had a £300 drill, I'd be very bothered about that. So yes, more expensive, high quality drills are probably a wise investment when it comes to narrowboat restoration, but there's nothing wrong with a cheap one, and it does work, and it is brilliant. And you will need at least one of these. Later on, I might invest in another cheap drill and we'll keep going. But so far, touch wood, it's been fine. At number 3, we've got the MIG welder. Now, when you're restoring an old boat, at some point or other, you're going to need a bit of welding, whether it be welding on a bracket or moving a skin fitting, or like I did, building a whole gas locker. You will need some welding equipment. And if you don't weld yourself, well, it can be very, very expensive to get a welder in and do this work for you. So I suggest you make friends with somebody who can weld and does have their own equipment. It will save you a fortune. Now, I did have my own welding equipment before I started working on the boat, but unfortunately I lent it to somebody who totally abused it and misused it and scrapped it. So I had to go out and buy another one, and I bought the Wolf Professional MIG 140. It's not the best welder on the market, but it was the right price and would do what I needed of a welding plant. For those of you that are welders, you would look at that and say, oh, it's not very good. And you'd be right, it isn't that good. But unfortunately, when it comes to welding in boatyards and marinas, their electrical supply, their trip switches are very, very sensitive, and the bigger plants, the inrush current, just trips them out straight away. So you're really restricted to this sort of thing. So I bought this one, took a gamble on it, read the reviews on it, it seemed okay, and I've been using it and it's been pretty good. Now, I have upgraded it slightly. I've moved to the better regulators that tell me how much gas is in it and the pressure as well, and it's just a much better quality regulator. It doesn't leak. Some of these smaller ones can leak and you waste a lot of gas. And I've moved up to 2 litre cylinders rather than the 1 litre cylinders. They don't last long at all, but the 2 litre ones, you know, you don't change cylinders so often. The problem I've had with this MIG welder so far is basically the handset. The angle of the torch here is very, very shallow, and that's because the motor that winds the wire through isn't very powerful, so they've made that quite shallow. I prefer if it was a slightly more of an angle, and that would make it a bit easier for me to get in. But so far it's been really good and it has saved me a fortune. So get yourself a MIG welder if you can weld, and if you can't, make friends with somebody who can. At number 2, we've got the vacuum cleaner. Now, it sounds bizarre, but this vacuum cleaner has totally turned around working on the boat. Before I bought this, I was sweeping up with a dustpan and brush and it was horrible. But now I've got this vacuum, I still sweep up with a dustpan and brush, but I can go around all the corners and get rid of all the dust and all the particles, and it makes the place so much cleaner and tidier and much better to work in. Also, it prepares areas when you're working on them finally. You know, it's been brilliant. Now, this one is a wet and dry vacuum. It didn't need to be a wet vacuum, but I thought being on a boat would be useful if it was. I haven't needed to use it on anything wet so far, but it's there if ever I need it. Now the top will lift off, and this is a huge container for holding all your dirt and debris. I can't remember how big it is, but it's huge. And inside there is a cleanable filter. You can take it off, clean it out yourself, put it back on. So you don't need to buy consumables for it. Now this vacuum, I can't remember exactly how much I paid for it, but it was cheaper than a domestic vacuum. So, you know, buy yourself a vacuum. It will make a massive difference when it comes to restoring an old boat. And now the #1 top tool for restoring an old narrowboat. Now this tool has been brilliant. I use it almost every day, and the best thing about it is you make it yourself. And here it is. How about that? What that is, that's an old hacksaw blade off a mechanical hacksaw that broke. I've ground the teeth off the edge and I've sharpened this. Now this steel is very, very hard. It is quite brittle, so you do have to be careful. But it's very, very hard, and the sharp edge like this is brilliant for scraping things. So all the rust that's collecting anywhere, you scrape it with this and it gets rid of it. If there's a bit of wood that needs shaving down, you can shave it down with this. It's just been absolutely brilliant, and I use it for splitting wood. It will split wood as well, you know, by tapping it down lightly on small pieces of wood for lighting the fire. It has just been the best thing. Now I made this 10 years ago, and I've used it with my other restorations, and I brought it onto the boat, and straight away, you know, if you want to paint a surface, rather than sit there sanding for hours and hours and hours, you scrape it with this first, and it gets rid of massive amounts of material and high spots and this sort of thing, and then it reduces your sanding time dramatically. And the same with a piece of wood. You know, if you've got a piece of wood that just needs an edge taken off, you just run it off with this. You know, use it as a chisel if you like, and it has been brilliant, and I can't recommend this highly enough. Been an absolute lifesaver and saved me hours and hours and hours of work, particularly when cleaning out anything rusty that needs preparing for painting. People use wire brushes and it's dusty and it's horrible, and it gets in your teeth and in your eyes and up your nose. It just gets everywhere. Scrape it with this first, and then a light wire brush over, and you get rid of all your loose material. So get yourself an old mechanical hacksaw blade, grind the teeth off, sharpen the end up, and honestly, it will pay dividends. Well, that's it for another episode. I hope you enjoyed the tool review. Things are moving on with the boat, slowly, but they are moving on, and we'll cover that in the next episode. But until then, take care, and I'll see you soon.